everyone, it is the me, GamePick1, and today, well, with the news of other things kind of dying down at this point, and quite honestly, because I have no other ideas of what to make a video on, but I've been keeping myself to at least 2 videos a week, today we're going to be reviewing The Finals, Season 2. So yes, this is another review that may not get a lot of views, but I want to make, but I have very little else to make, or really talk about at this point, due to the lack of salt and due to the lack of everything else. But I do want to try to keep a schedule because it keeps me a little bit sane in this. But for those of you who just want the TLDR, here it is. Is it still good? Yes. Should you play it? Hell yes. The review over. If you want to leave, go and do it. But if you want the more specific things of what I've said has changed, there's several different things. I'm not going to cover all the specific patch notes, just the major new changes and things like that, to just kind of go over that. Again, all of this is just in my personal opinion, and of course this is the second time that I've reviewed this game, so yeah. But before we get into it, just a quick reminder that I am looking to hit 1K subscribers by the end of the year. Please hit that like and that subscribe button, it would really help me, and comment it to get me through that algorithm would really help. If you want anything else that I make off the top of my head, any of my music, all the stuff, even the music probably in this video that I'm going to be using, all of that linked down in the description in the Bandcamp. You can download it all, and you can give me however much money you want, or you can just download it all for free if you really want to. You don't have to pay me, but I make it for you guys. And finally, of course, I do stream on Twitch most of the weekends. If you want to hear me play some music while I do some DJ stuff, go right ahead, twitch.tv/GamePick21. Anyways, let's get started because there's a lot of information to get through. So, let's go to it. So, to get to the specifics, The Finals is a free-to-play arena-type shooter where with the best possible destruction and sandbox type arena mechanics you'll probably ever see for a free-to-play game. The reason being is that Embark Studios, the people behind it, are also the people who were behind like Battlefield Bad Company, or at least several of the developers were. At the very minimum, several of the developers were. And of course they have, this is more of like their side project, but again, it's a free-to-play first-person shooter. That is my shit all day, every day. I played a lot of TF2. Anyway, now in the last review I talked about a lot of it, but for those of you who just want the quick and dirty and don't want to go back and watch that video, the quick and dirty is that you're basically playing on a game show called The Finals, where you compete against other contestants in a virtual battle arena, technically speaking, in at least the lore of The Finals, that is. And there's consistency of like the meat space, and there's a lot of like lore and stuff. If you really want to get into it, again, this is not a lore video. Probably I'll link something like that in the description down below. But you have a bunch of amazing elements in this one. For the main gameplay stuff being things like grappling, parkour, zip lines, jump pads, etc. Basically take all the really good stuff of like the early 90s or 2000s. Types of FPS, bring them forward into a modern one, get some of the destruction mechanics from Battlefield, as well as some of the mechanics from Call of Duty, and several other mechanics from like Overwatch and other stuff, but like not like the good ones, the very small nuggets that are gold. Put them all together and you basically have The Finals. It's super fun, super fast paced, and again, very, very competitive. There's several different game modes, including things that you can do for tournament style modes, where you can go up against up to 4 other teams of 3 in order to play cash and get like cash prizes, which in this case is the points. So yeah, there's also quick cash, which is still the same thing, and also bank it, which is again still the same thing, both of which are kind of slightly different game modes. Bank it is more of a team deathmatch / objective style one, whereas quick cash is more just the straight objective style one, but they do have a new game mode, which I will get into. But we're going to start off with some of the more smaller stuff, and then we're going to get into the game modes, and we're going to quickly go over all of these. So, each of the new classes has gotten at least 2 or 3 new things. The medium has gotten 3 new things, but they have gotten rid of one thing, which I will get into when I talk about the medium. But we're going to start talking about the light. The light, of course, is some of the better guns, but not this new one. It's kind of The new one is a burst fire kind of Beretta gun with like a stock. I forget the specific thing that they use it in game, but it's basically like a Beretta with burst fire. Now, it feels a bit weak in comparison to most of the other guns, and he's there, but again, if you catch people off guard, it's fine. The only problem is that it's a burst fire, which is like very, very hard to at least control. With some of the other guns, like the shotgun or the Mac 11, both of those are pretty decent, and both of those can really kind of work, but overall, like, not particularly good. the ending bit of this is that if you can connect all the shots and burst down and stuff, it's pretty solid, but overall, it's not, at least for me, I guess. As for the gadget on top of this, which is more of the portal grenades, that is actually really cool. The portal grenades act just like a portal or a teleportation, where you can teleport yourself or other teammates, or even some of the things in the environment. Now, one of the more interesting things you can do is you can travel, I believe, up to like 40-ish meters, with the connection still being established, because that's how long they last. And it allows you to do various interesting things. The reason why this is like a portal gun and why it looks the way that it does in terms of looking like it's kind of half rendered is because the theme of this season is more of a hacking style season. So these are technically not supposed to be in the game, but they were hacked into the game by the actual people who are in charge, which is like the CNS kind of lore thing. Again, it's a lot of lore this season, but like it's really cool. Overall, you can throw these overhanded or underhanded like a standard grenade, and you get 2 of them. Now, the 2 is because you have to have an entry point and an exit point. It doesn't really matter, you can teleport between the 2, but I think that these work very versatility because you can get very decently onto the high ground, which is one of the things that the light was very hard at doing unless you had, say, the grappling hook. This kind of is not the same thing, but it's kind of like a side grade to the grappling hook. Much like how the Vanish Bomb was more of a side grade to the invisibility from last season. It's very much the same vein in that way, and I think that that's a good way to build the light, is to build the strength and the weaknesses based on that. So yeah, absolutely. But the portal grenades are definitely really solid, and it's very hard to like say that they're bad because, again, you can get things like get onto the high ground, get onto the low ground. You can use them to carry the cache out like 40 to 50 meters across the entire thing in an instant. After you like do it's insane, and overall, it works really well for getting places to and from, and it just works super, 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 super good, and I love it. And I think that that's probably one of the stronger things in this one. Now, medium is interesting because they actually lost something, which was the recon senses, but it got replaced with the dematerializer, or I call it the hacking tablet. The hacking tablet does a couple of different things in this one, at least for the medium's sake. Now, the hacking tablet, or the dematerializer in this specific context, is the specialization, so you can't have like 2 of the same hacking type tablets, but overall it's just different. But the dematerializer basically allows you to do wall hacks, which is more of where you can glitch through the environment in terms of, instead of, you know, ditching them inside of that. There's a lot of different methods to do this, and it has more of a radius than anything else, and it's pretty solid. Again, to anyone that can it does it to literally anything that you can see within the environment that allows you to pass through walls. One of the more interesting things about this is the fact that it also follows the destruction mechanics, i.e., when you destroy it, the hole might look a little bit weird. That's because that's how the structure would fracture or break, depending on how the calculations of the actual structure are when you try to go and blow up that building. It kind of follows the same thing. It also makes it blast resistant in the sense that it will also destroy everything around what is hacked. So it just takes 0 blast damage, which is very interesting. This allows you to get very stupid, very interesting, and very weird angles. But overall, so long as the other 2 are also very strong in this context. So, I mean, it's definitely more stronger. It's definitely not as strong, I say, as general wall hacks or you seeing them, but it's definitely not weak and can definitely hold its own against the other 2 specializations. If healing and turrets weren't like the main meta last season, this one's fairly solid if you already have a healer or you already have someone with a turret on there. So, again, not the worst thing, but it can really open up maps if you know how to use it properly. It does take a little bit of a higher skill ceiling, but overall, like, that's a solid addition. I think that that's actually really good, at least, again, personally. Next up, we've got the FAMAS, and this is, again, one of the more meh kind of things here. The FAMAS is, again, another burst fire type weapon that exists. It kind of looks like the actual FAMAS type stuff, and looks and feels exactly how you would think it looks. And overall, it's not good, but also not terrible. I think that it will definitely get outgunned or outdone by most of the other quote-unquote meta weapons like the AK or the FCAR. Both of those are still solid in their own rights, but the FAMAS can definitely hold its own if you get the distance and can get your shots on target. Being that it's a triple shot or a burst fire, you can actually burst fire down a person. Again, it's one of those things where the full auto will definitely outgun you if you get less shots on your target, but you can hold your own, so it's not the worst thing, but again, it's definitely not great. And lastly, of course, with the gadgets, we have the Data Reshaper. Now, the Data Reshaper, much like the Dematerializer, is the hacking type tool for this character this season. Now, while the Dematerializer destroys or basically creates holes in walls, the Data Reshaper actually reshapes specific objects. Now, this can work on any sort of prop in the map. It can also work on the barrels, and the barrels it can also work on enemy gadgets, which is important. Now, both of those are really good for dealing with stuff. Now, to go down the list of each of these, the random props that you can see around the maps, any of one that you can pick up can be turned into a barrel. This includes flower pots, chairs, tables, even sometimes umbrellas and things like that. All of that can be basically made and shaped into the canisters that you see around the map. Now, the canisters specifically have a way of going around it, and there is a method to figure out where and what they will change into. It's not random each time. It goes from red to gray, or from explosive to smoke, from smoke to I think it's either gas or goo, from goo to flame, from flame to gas, and from gas to explosive again. So it goes around in that sort of clockwise-y type way. And again, it's very easy to figure that out once you know what you're doing. The props are absolutely random, and always the enemy stuff will turn into props, which is, again, very important. Because in order to deal with certain things, you do have to get close to them, but so long as you are able to get that off, it will change it, and it will put the actual enemy things on cooldown, which is actually a good idea. And not only is it a good idea, it's actually very, very powerful if you can get it off in the correct context. This means you can basically like stealth hack things, similarly to the Dematerializer, where you can stealth hack into something and do things like steal the vault, steal the cash out without having to make too much noise, and it's very easily missed in terms of the audio cue. It's very, very powerful, again, if you know what you're doing. Overall, it's not the most powerful thing, but again, in the correct context, you can really do some damage if, again, you know what you're doing with the Dematerializer and the data transfer thing. So, yeah, overall, again, not the most powerful thing, but it's definitely not weak in terms of what else you can bring along. And finally, we have the heavy, and this is where we get into a more speculative style territory, because overall, the heavy stuff isn't really the best in this context. The two things that the heavy gets is the KSG, as well as the anti-grav grenade. Now, the KSG is basically a KSG where it's a shotgun, but this shotgun is different from the other shotgun that was done last season, or done a while back, that being that this shotgun has slugs, and the difference between a slug and buckshot is that a slug can travel further and can actually hit harder, and is actually a particle weapon? Not a particle weapon. It's not a hit scan, is what I should say, specifically. It also can't aim down sights, both of which seem to be very difficult negatives, because, again, you have to aim yourself very effectively, but, again, it's one of those things where it's not the worst, but it's definitely not great, because you don't get the sort of spread of a shotgun that's a bit more forgiving for anyone that's up in your face. And, yes, it can be very powerful, but you do, again, have to, be able to aim down sights, but you can't. And that's like, it's very difficult to say that it's bad. It's very difficult to say that it's good overall, but again, I don't really play a lot of heavy, so I wouldn't know too much about that. And the thing is the anti-gravity grenade, yeah, no, that's just bad. Overall, like, yes, absolutely, the anti-gravity grenade could be good. It could be useful in the correct situations to, like, move the cash out up. I've seen people, like, destroy or take down a portion of the building, throw an anti-grav grenade down there, pull the cash out up, and then put goo in to be able to catch it, and that means that the person's now stuck there. I've done it to where, again, you can blow out the floor, grab the vault and run away, but again, I feel like the medium can already do that, and overall, like, that anti-gravity grenade, it doesn't help you. Yes, it might help with vertical movement, but just bring a jump pad or something, or give heavy a jump pad. I think that both of those would be a bit better, and it just, to me, doesn't feel as strong as the other contenders in the same category. Whew, that took a while. But we'll get into the last couple of things here. That includes the new game mode as well as the new map. Starting off, of course, with the new map, the biggest change with the new map is the fact that it's not actually based on a real-world location, or at least not in terms of the things that we're used to. It seems that it's based on a lore of the world, rather than, you know, actually, like, the place where you exist in. So, again, seeing that how it's a hacking thing, it is a fun map, and I do like the little details of when a destruction happens, it's more of, like, bits or, like, little bits of, like, 8-bit style fucking destruction and stuff happens, rather than it just breaking in it more, in a more, like, geometric style way, as in, like, you know what I mean when you see it. It just looks really cool. It looks like you're destroying data rather than you're actually destroying, like, a building, which is fun. One of the other interesting deals is that when you're on this specific map, the AI voices will actually glitch out as if they're, again, not technically supposed to be there, which is interesting and also very important to the lore, and feels like it should be more important than it is, but it just feels like a nice little detail, and I do like that. And again, it's just fun. And finally, then there's the new mode, and oh my gosh, does Power Shift come into its own when you get the correct team together. Holy Jesus. So what is Power Shift? Power Shift is basically King of the Hill meets Hardpoint meets Push from Overwatch, and kind of the same thing from TF2, but it's more of from Overwatch because you can go back and forth, and it creates this interesting tug-of-war mechanic, which I think will be the best thing for anyone who's looking for a new, fresh game mode. It is a 5v5 game mode, which is like your standard, typical game mode that you would see in any other video game, but let me just say, hoochie mama, is this fun! Please do more game modes like this. Do more fun, interesting style game modes, because this right here is so much fun. And when you get enough of them together, it'd be really cool to see a rotating list in the tournament mode, so that way it's never feeling that, like, unfocused, or there's like different objectives to it, which I think would just work really, really well. Again, that's been my personal opinion. Maybe the bracket mode, it works well with the extraction type quick cache mode, but that's fine. Overall, this is intrinsically fun and just so good because it creates so much chaos. So yes, absolutely, the pathways of the actual moving platform is different every time. The ending points are different, and it just feels like you're going throughout the map, and it goes through buildings. And now I don't mean it like it pushes through buildings without doing anything. No, no, no. This thing don't give a shit. This thing will basically fuck up your entire building and the block that you're standing on unless you, like, know what you're doing. It just does not give a shit. The only biggest problem that I would see with some context is that there's a meta that forms where you have to have APS and you have to have, like, bubble or shield or some way to cover yourself, because there's no big cover on there, and there's no way to stop anyone from, like, throwing grenades or launching RPGs and stuff in there. So you have to plan around it, but since there's 5 people, it's much easier to get teamwork going. So, because even if, like, 3 of them are actually cooperating and beating together, you can just bulldoze an entire team, especially if you have a stack of 5. Holy Jesus, sometimes you can do that. But it's also one of those things where the push and pull is just so good, because no matter how far you get into it, until you bring it to the end point, the enemy team can still steal it back, wipe the rest of your team, and pull it back to middle in order to win the actual game. And that, to me, is more interesting. Again, that whole push and pull type mechanic is super, super fun. And yeah, the only problem that I really have with it is the fact that it only works on like 2 or 3 2 or 3 of the maps right now, which I get is like okay, but please, as the season goes on, please add more maps. That would be so much fun to deal with, because god damn it, some of these maps need to do it, especially with the new map. I'm surprised they didn't do it on the new map. That would have been so cool. But yeah, obviously there's like more jump pads, more other stuff to it, and again, it's just so much fun. Now, to recap the whole of this video, this season is super fun, and it's a very positive improvement to add more interesting lore as well as more interesting and fun game mechanics. And again, they're leaning heavily into the more arcadey style, which I absolutely am here for. Overall, the new mode is fantastic, an absolutely S tier class of the best of this game in my personal opinion, because I play more casually. The weapons are kind of blah, but like they range from okay to blah to meh to okay, but overall like not the best. The new gadgets are super fantastic, or you know, not really the best, or completely garbage in my opinion, and the new specialization is just world-classly changing, but not as groundbreaking as people would like. A lot of people will be more or less upset with this, but to me, I'm actually very happy because I get to play more of the finals, and to me, that's enough. Anyway, I think that'll about do it. Whew. That was a lot to cover in 20 minutes, and I really wanted to cover more of it, but again, I have to keep a time frame here. But I do think that that'll about do it for this video. If you like what it is, and you, again, want to support me in any way, shape, or form, or want to see more of me review some of these games out here, please feel free to look in the description down below for other stuff. I will probably have to go back and, you know, make a playlist of all of my reviews, which is probably what I'm going to do. Because these are slightly different from my normal commentary stuff, so I might as well differentiate them. But overall, thank you so much for watching, if you made it this far into the video. If you really want to go out and play the finals, it's free to play. Like I said, it's on Steam, it's on Xbox 360, it's on the Xboxes, it's on the PlayStation, it's everywhere except for the Nintendo Switch, unfortunately. And for a little game that was free to play, that launched during the Game Awards, which I still think was fucking ballsy to do, it is so much more good, and this is definitely a good point to hop in, because overall, I just think that the balancing and the changes and the stuff that they've already done to this game is fucking phenomenal. Anyway, I think that I'll have to let you go there. My name is GamePenguin21, thank you very much for watching, and a peace.